Love it. So, man, first of all, you're going to be on this show multiple times, man, because there's so much that we're going to talk. Honestly, man, this is my jam, brother. So, and you could bring so much to the table as you're talking. My questions keep coming into my head, but let's give them that 30,000-foot view. Why do they even want to listen to you? Who are you? Where'd you come from? Give that 30,000-foot view, and I'm going to bring this back around why we connect so much.
So, man, my story is a long one, man. I'm going to write a book one day. I grew up in Montreal, Park Extension, lower class, poor neighborhood. My parents, two immigrant parents, they worked 10, 12 hours a day. So from a young kid, you're 8 years old, you have the key in your hand, going home, making your lunch, waiting for your sister to come. I always go back. I remember the first time my house got robbed because we lived in a pretty poor neighborhood. We were robbed a few times. And the first time I walked into my house when I was robbed, I was alone. I was like 8 or 9 years old. And I remember the door being open and I'm like, Ma, Ba, and I know it's impossible they're there. And I walked in the house and I see the house mess. And I was like scared, but I was like, I still didn't leave. I stayed there and I picked up and I called 911 and they were like, they come there like, where are your parents, kid? I'm like, I'm alone, so that's a little bit. And I grew up in the streets, I got picked on, I got bullied on, I won some fights, I lost some fights. And then at 9, 10 years old, I told my dad I wanted to go to Kung Fu, martial arts, and they didn't have money. And I bitched and cried for 3 months. And finally they signed me up to that. And then I started building my confidence. So started doing different martial arts. At the age of 13, my parents were like, okay, my dad's like, you're 13, you're a man, men work. And at 13, after school, I had to go every day from 4 to 8 and clean buildings with my dad. I was freaking 13 years old and pretty much working. At 16, I, got sent to an adult school and then kicked out of high school. So I never finished my high school because I had learning disabilities, ADHD, dyslexia. And at the time, they didn't know how to, the system wasn't made for that. And my parents were kind of like, well, you're on your own now. You're a man, like, how do you tell your father who's been working from the age of 8, who lost his father, and at 16 he's a sailor? To him it's like, go figure your shit out. So at 16 I dropped out of school. I started working at McDonald's, and I left the house. So it was a roller coaster ride. Meanwhile, I'm always doing martial arts, I'm always in the arts, I'm always in the fighting. So I learned how to be a survival from a young age. And then I'm like 21, 22. Funny story, I'll tell you. I started investing some money in the stock market and I made $250,000.
Wow.
Yeah, I made 250 grand and I lost it all. I went crazy. When a young kid gets that much money, I bought a fur coat and I'm going out and I'm partying and the girls and eating at the best restaurant. I'm thinking,
look at the NBA.
I freaking made it. And then markets crashed. I lost all my money. And next thing you know, I had to go get a job at the same club. I was acting like a freaking gangster and cool. And I started working in clubs as a doorman. And then I'm working as a doorman and as a bouncer. And I had no education. I go, where else am I going to go get a job and be able to make money? So I was making like $500 in a week in cash, standing at the door. And at the same time, I said, well, I'm here. And this is what I've been trained for. This is what I do. Now I can get to actually see what works and what doesn't work. So then I started working in clubs. And then later on, I got married and I said, well, I can't work in the clubs anymore. So I started working at a hospital as a janitor. So back to making $16, $17 an hour. I hated my job. And then I, said to myself, shit, I got to open a business. So 10 years ago, I'm like, my son was just born. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. So then I said, how do I start? I have no money. So I had my $2,000 shitbox Subaru with holes in it, a little duffel bag. I said, let me just open and pursue my dream and try to do something. So I opened my business, my first business, which was Nick Home Fit. It's a personal training business. And then I started, getting into the self-defense as well. I opened my first YouTube channel, having no idea what I'm doing. I'm just posting stuff. And then, a year later thinking, holy shit, people are responding. They're liking what I'm doing. And with time, I'm like, okay, I'm onto something. Now, I know nothing about business, marketing, other than what my experience has been through all my years of working various jobs. And I pretty much use the simple principles that McDonald's still uses today: suggest sale, marketing, brand yourself, put yourself out there. And then when I started my business, social media didn't exist other than YouTube. So as I'm growing, I'm venturing in all these different places, and I'm scaling. And 10 years later, and this is very important what I'm telling the viewers, 10 years later, I mean, I was working at the hospital making $30,000 a year, and I hated my job. And it's not about money. It's really, really not. It's not about money. But 10 years later, I'm able to, you know, I got to a point where, you know, I live in a nice home. I own a building. I drive a nice car. I can travel. I can go to Greece, fulfill what I want to do. And I always told people 10 years ago when I built my plan, I said, okay, how much money do I need to have the life that I want? I don't need $1 million or $10 million. That's not what I was chasing. I go, if I could make 5 or 10 times the income I'm making today and be able to give myself and my son a good life, then I'm happy. And I wrote my plan in detail, almost ADD, of exactly what I wanted, and I sold myself short. Mind you, through that, I even went through divorce. I lost all my shit, slept in my gym. You know what I mean? I always say, I'm going to go back again. I was sitting at the lawyer's office and I was paying $30,000, and I'm crying as I'm paying her because I finally made it to a certain level where I was doing well, and boom, I just got hit. But guess what, man? I got right back up and I said, fuck it. If nothing broke me then, nothing's going to break me now. And then I just got up and I soared. Like, you know, after I got divorced, you know, 6 years later, I got divorced almost 7, 8 years ago. I hammered it out. I got obsessed with just making it. I tell people the greatest revenge or the greatest accomplishment is massive success. And I was hyper focused on that. So that's a little, in that there's a lot of, you know, stories, but that's pretty much all of it in a full.
See, I love that. And let me give you my quick 30-second, 30,000 foot view. Put up for adoption at birth. In the first 18 months of my life, I was in an orphanage in North Philly, adopted by 2 amazing individuals that were 2 generations ahead. So I was raised by the World War II generation. So my he was 82nd Airborne, World War II at 18 years old for 4 years, fighting the Germans in Europe. So his philosophy in life was this: lace up your boots, get to work. Nobody wants to hear it, right? Left back in the 2nd grade, diagnosed with ADD, said I had a learning disorder, never graduated high school. At 19, I'm sitting in a jail cell looking at 8 to 10 if things don't go my way. So when I got kicked out of high school, I came home. My dad goes, great. Now what are you going to do? How are you going to pay your bills? What are you going to do? I go, that's a good question. I don't know, right? And I went into construction because that's what I knew. And I did everything under the sun. Framing, roofing, brickwork, block work, landscape, and whatever it was, and then built from there. But I want people to understand this because of our stories. You are the only one that truly has the ability to accept or deny any fucking title. These so-called experts and their ADD and all their bullshit, I promise you, if you want to call it ADD, whatever the fucking title you want to call it, is the most leveraging power that any entrepreneur. I promise you, look at every successful entrepreneur, 90%, 95% have that bullshit title. But it's the one, I always say this, Nick, it's either your strongest propeller or your heaviest fucking anchor. You have to decide what that is. So to feed a little kid, because they're not going to learn in that cookie cutter mode that there's something broke, I give them this.
You know what, man? That I connect the most with people like you.
Of course.
I connect with people who have, like, I've never judged people. And I mean, I've been around, I worked in clubs, man. I've seen drug dealers. I've seen people who fucked shit up, who got back their lives. I don't judge them because you don't know what everybody's going through. I might not agree with their decisions, but I've met people who've done fucked up shit because just their life, you know, and again, it's an excuse. I tell people at the end, in the moment you could say, I am fully 100% accountable and responsible for everything that's happened to me, you will never, ever grow. You need to say that to yourself. When you say that to yourself, okay, And I tell people, here's the good news. You also have the power to make a difference and make the right choices, because you are accountable and you are responsible for everything you do. I'll tell you a great story. When I wanted to go back to high school when I was 19, right? Because I couldn't get a fucking job, right? And I'm like, what am I gonna do in my life? Be a waiter or in a restaurant or a busboy? Nothing wrong with it, because I did those things, but I couldn't see myself doing that forever. So I went to take part of a study almost 25 years ago, whatever it was, a study on ADD and ADHD. They were looking for young adults. So we were the highest to be in drug, gambling, highly addictive behaviors. There's a little bit of OCD in us, but that's what drives us, right?
Or
That's
leverage.
what makes us happen. So I go through all these tests, and at the end, the doctor looks at me and goes, you're gonna need pills. You're gonna need Ritalin or pills for you to be able to focus and go back to school. I looked at him and said, Doc, call me stupid, call me dumb, but I'm not taking that shit in my body. I refused it.
Yep.
I didn't want to take it. I said, you know what? I'll figure it out. Today, and I tell people, I learned to manage my ADD. If you come in, first of all, if you look at my gym, everything's structured. My life is structured. I stay away from drama, anything that, I write everything down, my boards, my appointments, everything is very, very, very organized, because that helps me with my brain. So I've created my own system as well. The reason why I said drama, they say that like ADHD, a lot of times, sometimes it comes back when we're young. We're born in like homes or trauma where there's a lot of going on, which triggers that. How true is that? Who the hell knows? But again, I try to tell people, I look at my ADD as a gift. It's a gift of my creativity. It's my gift of my drive. It's my gift as well. Circumstances made me, right? They didn't make me. The choices made me. Because at the end, it's not your circumstances. Because I've seen people come from great families and fuck up their lives. And I told them, I said, bro, you have everything. You grew up with great loving parents. You grew up with money. You had everything. And you're complaining about your life and you fuck shit up. But again, I try to say that to my son. My son tells me, I go, no, let me tell you something. Nobody owes you anything. Get that out of your head, right? I don't owe you anything. My job is to raise you as best as you can. But after that, when you're going to get a certain age, you got to figure your shit out.
Yeah. And I'm going to give everyone, I haven't spoken about this because I'm now at the point where I can, like you, I can speak from real world wisdom. Here's a life hack for everybody. And I promise you, if you give it a legitimate 30-day chance, I promise you, you will see a significant fucking difference in your focus, your overall energy, and your overall well-being. Delete every part of simple sugars out of your life for 30 days. Replace them with proteins and high fat. I promise you, your life will fucking change. That I promise you, your life will fucking change. Just try it. That's all I have to say on that. That's my life hack, and I'm speaking on it because I'm actually living it and feeling it consistently, man. It's fucking wild, Nick. It's wild. The poison that we're fucking taking in.
It affects our mind.
No, everything. It affects. See, my parents. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, right? They're World War II generation. I'd wake up in the morning. She'd make me a stack of pancakes with syrup, right? And a big glass of orange juice. And I'm like this. And she'd go, now you make sure you pay attention. Don't get in trouble. I could run next to the bus, right? But I'm telling you, if somebody gives this a shot, it is you now you harness this leverage that me and you have, right? The ADD, whatever they want to call that, now becomes, instead of the craziness, it just becomes a laser fucking focus.
Look at focus.
Unbelievable. And
it's a little bit, people who know me, it's weird to say this. I don't like saying it. Sounds, a few people who know me have they've called me a genius, and I'm like, I'm not a fucking genius. What are you talking about? But I realize I've sat down with people who studied in university in business and marketing, and they're showing me what they're going to do. And because I'm not limited by what school taught me in this box and how I'm supposed to think, I'm shooting stuff where they're like, whoa, how did you come up with that? I go, it just makes sense. Why? Because of this, because of that, because of that. They're like, oh, I never thought about that. Because at the same time, school is great, but it also puts you, it closes your mind, where to me, what I want to teach my son is to think outside the box. Go out and experience, learn what they're going to teach you. Obviously, I want him to finish high school. I want him to get an education. However, I don't want the education to label his ability of what he could achieve and what he can't. That to me is the important part. Because a lot of times—
I love that.
Yeah, because a lot of times we think, oh, he's got a university degree, and we think he's so smart. But I've met a lot of educated dumb people, as I call them.
Yes.
Right.
Because Nick, at the end of the day, here's the deal, right? You are a genius. You are a genius in your world, right? Because you've lived that experience from the real world, right? And what people, I believe one of the best ways to wrap your brain around this. And when I came to this aha moment, it was like, the lights came on. There's multiple definitions of intelligence. And when people can wrap their brain around that, if you can really wrap your brain around that and own that, now what happens is, at the end of the day, I believe that your self-image can be built up, tore down, but it can never be outperformed. See, how you feel about yourself is that thermostat. So if you feel like you're at 72%, right, you can get up to 85, but unless you truly start to believe that and work on yourself, it's not going to get there. So no matter how many times people call you a genius, unless you start to really understand that there's different levels, there's levels of this game, right? We've heard that.
You know what was the hardest part? I grew up with a mom who was manic and borderline. And she used to tell me I was stupid, I was dumb, I was good for nothing. She would tell me, I regret the day you were born. And I was a kid hearing this on repetitive. It took me almost at 40 years old, and I'm 44, to realize that she's mentally sick and she was on a lot of medication. And when she wasn't, she was verbally, emotional, and sometimes physically abusive, both to me and my sister. And the hardest thing was to try to build my confidence because of the way I grew up. So there was a lot of challenges there. So I did grow up, and then you go to school, and school tells you you're stupid.
Yep.
You're not smart.
Yep.
I remember my teacher tells me when I got kicked out of high school, he goes up to me, I'll be very surprised if you amount to anything. And I remember, until today, I remember walking out of his office, and there was a window, and I looked back. I still remember it. And I remember saying to myself, I'm really dropping out of school. I'm fucked. And he told me, I can't kick you out of the school. You have to stay because you only have a few months left. Just be in the parameters. And I was going outside. I was playing basketball. I was just staying in school. And I remember thinking, what the fuck am I going to do? Right. And I want to say one thing that's very important is school is, it's academically intelligence. But the most important type of intelligence is what we have right now, emotional intelligence. That is what connects us, is our level of emotional intelligence. When you have that, then you could build from anything from that, right? So people—
And Nick, here's why we are geniuses in our lanes, and our lanes keep expanding. And here's where the educational system broke down. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Well, you don't understand. Figure it the fuck out, right? Because here's the deal. You know why they lost me and you? It's not because of the ADD. It's not because of their fucking touch. You want to know something? Why they lost me and you is because they didn't give us a fucking purpose. The reason that you're doing what you're doing and you're showing real world self-defense is because you know it works and there's a purpose. I want to get home tomorrow to my family. I'm getting home tonight to my family. That, if you don't give me a purpose, keep fucking walking, man. You don't have my attention. We're geniuses.
The way the school system, I thought about how the school system should be made, right? And I really thought about that. Like, my son's 12 years old now, he's in school. And I see some parents put so much pressure on their kids when they don't do well. It's as if it's a reflection of their intelligence or how good they are. And I tell parents, like, relax. I go, like, I mean, yes. So I try to tell my son is that I don't put too much pressure on him, right? I want him to go and learn and do his best, but I don't want to, you know, when I was in school, you could have grabbed my head and rammed it. I didn't get it. And one of the reasons why, it's because they didn't know how my brain works. Yes. They were not, they look, you have 30 kids in a class. The teacher's like, okay, he's smart, he's stupid. They didn't take the time to be like, okay, how can we help you, right? I remember I was doing a math exam and I would flip the numbers over sometimes. And only one teacher said, she goes, why did you write this? She goes, you got it right, but you put the answer wrong because you put the numbers upside down, or like you flip them over. And she's like, I'm still gonna pass you. Well, that was method, right? My ADD, and I was on a hyper, plus I'm living in a chaotic home, right? I'm living in a fight or flight home where I was in a survival mode because I didn't know if my father was gonna walk in and break everything in the house because he didn't feel good. And I didn't know if my mom's gonna snap because she didn't take her Xanax. And I was like a kid living like this, right? So how the hell did you expect me to focus? But again, at the time, right? And I go back to where I grew up, right? Everybody kind of lived that. And this is one thing that I tell people is that when people talk to me about, race or the color of your skin or the opportunity, I said at the end, it's irrelevant. It's what you do in your life. You can't blame anybody or anything or the system. You got to play the game and beat the system. I tell people, it's like, I had learning disabilities, but maybe you were a star in sports and that was your gift. We each have our challenges. And the real thing is, how do you overcome them? How do you become strong enough to say, how am I going to beat the system? How am I going to not make any excuses? We each have our challenges, no matter what it is, and give yourself the best life that you can give it.
Yeah, I always say this, Nick. I throw all the weight on life, right? When I talk about this, I say, listen, at the end of the day, I don't make the rules. You don't make the rules. Life makes the rules. Here's what life says: victims never win. So if you're going to
absolutely, I love that.
Listen, if you're going to play the race card, if you're going to walk out in the street and say, hey, I shouldn't have been there. I got jumped. I got beat up. And I'm just going to crumble. Well, then you're a victim. And life says, we don't really give a fuck. Here's the deal. Victims never win. You're either, and I believe this, Nick, that so many people get stuck in the survival mode mentality when they don't understand that they can actually now go from, once you get through into that survival, life is saying now you're strong enough if you're willing to now thrive. You don't have to stay in that the survival mode to me is for life is waiting for that shoe to drop. What a fucking horrible way to live. Are you kidding me? Right? So victims never win, man. That's my message.
I totally agree. And I think one of the main things, right? And I mean, I believe that you have to have a plan. And I always tell people, what's your why? What's your overall mission, right? So I was talking today to one of a very successful business client I used to train. And he called me today because he saw I was in Boston training the police officers there. And he called me and he's like, and I was in Boston, and he wrote to me, hey, you're $9.99 special. And he put a LOL, because when I started my business 10 years ago, I was charging $20, $30. I was just trying to make enough money to pay for my fucking equipment to build my business, right? But I had a plan. 10 years later, I sold myself short on my plan. And I was telling him, and I'm going to be accountable to tell you and the viewers right now. So I was telling him, and as we were talking, I said, you know what, Steph? You know my plan is in the next 10 years? He's like, what? I want to go move to Greece in a little island, because I love Greece. That's where my parents are from. A little island. I want to open a training camp, and I want to have people travel around the world and train with me and have a little house. So I visualized exactly what I want to build in 10 years. Like, I see it. And I tell people to me, the way I've always done success is I never look at it, am I going to do it? Am I going to get there? I always say, it's done. It's in the universe. I've sealed it. Now it's just a matter of when and how, but it's there.
Yeah.
So I have that mindset with everything I do in life.
I love that. It's speaking it into existence, right? I have a whole morning routine. I just finished up before we jumped on. My nickname is the Monster Motivator, right? So Monster Momentum Morning, and I literally have steps, right, each morning that I do and speak it into existence, and I love that. And let's do this, Nick. Let's wrap up the mindset portion of this, because I want to share with people how we connect, like why your YouTube's connected with me so deep. And this is going to blow you away for a second, but hold on. So people have to understand this. And I know at this point, you're going to understand this and probably run with it. You were charging $9.99. You were charging $29.99 because your thermostat wouldn't allow you to go up yet. Right? You had to build that thermostat, which is your self-image. As your self-image started to build, you start to realize that I am a genius. I am bringing value. Now I can charge more and feel good about it. So I want people to know, right, about you. Why was that $9.99? Simply because you haven't had the chance yet and the wherewithal to build that thermostat. And I want to run with one more thing here about your mom and your dad. And this goes to everybody's past. At the end of the day, your mom and your dad, just like every other human being on this planet, can only work within their level of awareness. That has nothing to do with condoning anything. It has to say that's fucking right. Life's rule is
that was hard. That was hard for me to do.
I know, but
I did it.
Right.
And
so
I
now
try to
what
show
that
compassion
does
to them. I try to show compassion for what they've been through.
Because, but here's the deal: compassion based on real data, right? So it's not airy fairy unicorn bullshit.
No, it's not.
No, and now what that does is now that gives you your power back, which is now you can just let it go and it becomes your strongest propeller versus your weakest anchor. And let's look back at your life, just like mine. If you want,
I want to say
real quick, get.
I want to say one
real answers, real quick, and then I'll have you circle back around. Your life is this. You ready? You were 10 years old. You walked into your house and it was fucking ransacked. You felt scared. You felt confused. You felt vulnerable. Okay, you ready? You know what you were? You were that bird in the eggshell, and the parent had nature says the only way that my baby is going to be strong enough to survive in the real world is to be able to peck their way out of that fucking shell. The mama bird knows it can help that baby get out anytime it wants, but it has the wherewithal. Nature says, no. They have to be. And the ones that can't, what happens, Nick? They don't make it. They don't. So the ones that me and you used to see had it all, and now are a fucking train wreck. And I know plenty that are already dead.
I know plenty of them, man.
Because struggle equals strength. Struggle equals fucking strength. And you know what? You ready? We'll take the guesswork out. Look at muscles. You can't build muscle if you don't put it under fucking stress. You can't defend yourself unless you put it under real world stress. So when you have those guys that are 6'5", 6'3", coming at you, not just coming at you, Nick, but here's what I love about what you do. They're coming at you verbally. The verbal part is more intimidating than the fucking physical part. I'm going to fucking smash your head. I'm going to fucking kill you, motherfucker. You, right? That's the real
you don't
world.
know. Like, you don't know
what are you
this
going to
guy
do?
from fucking hole in the wall.
What are you going to do?
Did he just come out of prison? Is he a psycho? Is he a gang member? You don't know. So you're studying the guy, but you're like, all right, is he bluffing? Isn't he bluffing? Do I strike? I don't strike. At what point? It's very high stress in that moment.
And more importantly, right, is you're teaching them to focus in the moment, right? So I want to get into this with you because it's everything, but I don't know. So finish what you were going to say.
I wanted to say one story to finish it, because I always tell people, if you want to know if you have what it takes to make it, I shared this story. So I had opened my personal training business. It's been 2 years I'm working. I got a brand new client. This client had a lot of money, a huge network. So I walk in her house. I'm training her for about a month. I walk into her house one day and she tells me, I don't feel like training. I'm really, I'm kind of swamped. And she was a really nice lady. She goes, do you mind helping me like clean the house? I said, what? She goes, yeah, can you clean my bathroom? Like, I mean, and it was like, I knew her. She was a really nice woman. She was just kind of overwhelmed, and her situation at that moment was a little bit, and I'm like, and here she is, she's paying me like almost $65, $70 an hour. And I'm like 45 minutes. And I'm like, and I'm just thinking, shit, I got to go back home. I got to do the groceries. I got to pay milk. I'm the only breadwinner at this point, right? My ex-wife is not working at the time. And I remember thinking, shit, I'm like, how degrading is this? But at the same time, I'm like, in my head, I'm just thinking she has a huge network. She knows a lot of people. Who knows what's going to come out of it? Just fuck it. You know what I mean? I calculated in my head, I used to make $17 an hour working at the hospital. Now I'm getting paid $70, $75 to do this job. So I said, okay, sure. What do you need? And I rolled my sleeves. I had my, I just changed my shirt and I helped her, clean the house and do what she wanted to do. And I was like, I got paid and I left. And I put that video on YouTube and some people said, oh, I would have told her off and you degraded yourself. And I tell people, what's degrading? Sitting at home and not working and making excuses. Sitting at home playing video games. Sitting at home saying you can't find a job. Maybe it wasn't degrading for me because I had no choice. Maybe it was, working from the age of 13 and 16 and working from a young age. My father always told me, the only degrading thing is not working. Pick up the mop and do what you have to do. So I looked at that. Would I do it today? No, I wouldn't do it. But at that time, circumstances was like, shut up, Nick, and just make the money you have to make and go home. Who cares?
And here's why that story is not degrading, because you had the decision on whether it's degrading to you or not. And now it's an actual propeller for you. That's why you feel so proud about sharing that. See, people give their control away every day. So now you ready for this? You're going to love this, my man. So this is how much I connected with you on YouTube. And now the show is just 10X in it. Nick, what was your last video? What was your exact last video that you did? What was it on?
Fear management.
Fearless is bullshit, my brother.
That's exactly what it was.
Right?
And I was talking about the gift of fear.
Yes.
How to manage fear.
Is
and
it
how
your
to control
propeller
it
or is it your anchor? Right? And I just shared something that Customato, a meme, and I'm just going to paraphrase this, right? The difference between a hero and a coward is the hero acts on it, works his way through that or her, and becomes, I'm a big believer in this, Nick, is working through it. If you think that you're going to be fearless in life, it's bullshit, right? People that tell us it's bullshit. And for me and you growing up as young men, we were told that if we feel fear, there must be something wrong with us. But what I realized that fear is our biggest propeller or its heaviest anchor. Once we break through with things that you teach now, we get the golden egg, which is courageous. See, courage is that 3-letter word, core. It comes from in here, right? It comes from, that word comes from your ancestors, the Greeks, right? It's core, C-O-R. It comes from here, in here. It comes from your why. It comes from your purpose. It comes from your soul, right? And that's, to me, it's about learning how to be courageous in life, not fearless. Fearless is bullshit all day long. And we've been conditioned to think that we're broke, Nick.
You know how many people told me that I'm broke? You're broken.
Yes.
Yeah, I dated a couple of girls. You're a broken soul.
Yeah.
I'm like, actually, evidence shows otherwise. You're pretty broken because you are basically projecting your own shit on me, and I'm not doing that to you. So guess who's broken? Not me, but you.
Right. And here's the other thing, Nick, ready? And again, ownership. And I learned this and I'm still learning it, right? This is part of our awesome fucking journey that we're here. I learned that the law of attraction is real. So if I am attracting those, now I need to step back and audit my shit.
Audit your shit.
Because
Guys,
I'm attracting
save that. Audit that shit. That's the first time I hear that. I think that's like gold. Audit your own shit. So you know what I kind of tell people? One of the keys, the first thing you need to do, I tell people, is figure out your own algorithm. Like a computer, there's an algorithm. What's your algorithm? And I tell people, don't just say it. Write it down. What do you repeatedly and consistently do? Whether you say you don't want to do it or want to do it. If you tell me, well, I want to get in shape, evidence shows you don't train. So no, you don't want to get in shape. You're saying it, but you're not doing it. So figure out your own algorithm. Once you figure out, okay, what is my algorithm? What do I do? What don't I do? What I like, what I don't like. And then start changing your habits slowly every day. And what I love, people underestimate, people like us work better on routine.
Yes,
I like routine.
Terms.
Yes, I like routine.
Yes.
I like our schedule. It keeps me focused. People think, maybe it's not as exciting, but guess what? I've done all my crazy shit in my 20s. I'm 40 now. I'm done with the crazy shit, going out partying, getting drunk, getting into fights. Been there, done that. At my age, I want a peaceful, quiet life. I'm very, very picky with who I leave in my circle and close to me. I have no problems with cutting anybody out of my life. And if you don't come in peace, I wish you the best out the door.
Yeah, good luck with that game plan, because we know it doesn't work, right?
Absolutely not.
I remember one of my, he was like a big brother to me, and he used to say to me, listen, man, he goes, just remember this. And he's, fighting and this and that and working his way through it. So I watched his transformation 5-6 years ahead of me, right? And I idolized him. So anything he said, and this stuck with me, Nick, after I got in my trouble in jail, he said this to me. He goes, listen to me. He goes, dude, just remember one thing. Tough guys never have any fun. I thought,
wow.
Tough guys have no fun. Nick, we've been there and we've seen it all day long. Tough guys have no fun, right? And at the end of the fucking day, me and you can preach about the grind and the fucking hustle and the fucking action and the goals and the aspirations and everything else. But at the end of the day, it's about having fun and fucking enjoying your life. That's the trump card, man.
I only started doing that now.
Yes.
Meaning, when I was like, just married, just opened my business, the pressure I had to make it, like I tell people, there was plan A, I have to make it. Plan B, I have to make it. There was no other plan, right? So there was a lot of stress and tension. For me, it was like, there's no other option. I don't want to be a freaking janitor at a hospital. And I tell people there's nothing wrong with that. If you're happy with that, that's great. The resistance is when that's not what you want to be doing and you're not happy with that. Yet I had that gift to teach and all the experience, but then it's like, how do I manifest it into a full-time job and into a career? And now today there's that less pressure to perform financially. And it's not because I'm rich, but I'm comfortable and I'm very low key. I don't need the high fancy schmancy stuff. Like, I see all these online marketers trying to sell these young kids. You want to make 7 digits? I can teach you how. All these guys blow my brains out because they're scamming young kids and men who think you're going to become a millionaire overnight. And the real process of it is hard work, consistency, dedication, having a plan. All this idea that you're going to wake up one day and build a business and 6 months later you're going to be a millionaire. I tell people, get that out of your head. And the difference between me and I think and other people, I understand that every goal I make is a 10-year term. I make 10-year goals. So in 10 years, I want to build that house in Greece, move to Greece, open my training camp and, have you come there and train with me and do this podcast there. That's how I think. But I'm in it for the long run and not the short run.
and here's the other thing that, and I'm going to use your story, right? You have to have non-negotiables. Non-negotiables create clarity. Clarity creates empowerment. Now, take that a step further. There's a difference, a huge difference between night and day, between grind, hustle, action versus what you're doing. Inspired action.
Inspiring.
See, inspired action is the magic. As you take that inspired action, the people and the circumstances start to come into your life. Now, what happens to that, Nick? Now that inspired action now trickles down to belief. Now that belief creates enough momentum to now create the golden fucking ticket, which is expectation. Now you expect it to come into your life, right? Which is what I call the trifecta of life. No matter how you interweave these, they are a flow. Knowing, flowing, glowing. So when you're knowing, you're flowing. When you're flowing, you're glowing as a motherfucker. When you're
I love that.
No matter, so when someone says, damn, Nick, you're lucky, you're glowing. Yeah, and I promise you, you're flowing. And I promising you because you're fucking knowing, right? It's a wave, right? Life is that wave that goes out, comes back in.
You see, it took me a long time to get to that point in my life. Me too. When I was young, I was an angry. I mean, I used to work at the door, and I used to hold a Jack and Coke at the door with my fur coat, and I used to drink, and I was angry. I was angry at my parents because I felt they should have gave me more love and should have been there. I was angry at society that dropped me out of school and didn't support me.
Did you have fun? No.
I went crazy.
Have no fun.
No, which is interesting.
And what I'm saying is, in that
the illusion of having fun is being a kind of tough guy and going out and hanging around with the wrong people and eating and drinking and, you know, all the girls. But there was no purpose. It was hollow, empty.
Yep. It's
right. There was
the Hollywood set. You open up that door and there's nothing behind.
There's nothing in it. It's like some of these Instagrammers I see. Okay, how many pictures of your butt can I see? What's inside? There's nothing. And that's I'll tell people, a lot of influencers, I'm like, what are you actually influencing? And I got to a point in my age, and there's a lot about my story I don't share, right? Because it's a little bit harder than that. And I don't share it because it's still very private and there's other things in that. But I got to a point where I could at least scratch the surface and talk a little bit, because what I want to do is I want to inspire. I want to give what I didn't get to the 20-year-old, the 15-year-old, the 10-year-old, the 30-year-old. You know, I only started my business at 31, 32. It's not that much long ago. You know what I mean? So when I hear people are 30 years old and I'm like, God, you have time, but just figure it out. Make a decision and do something with it. Stop contemplating, procrastinating, and making excuses. Because I tell people, time goes by very fast. And before you know it, 5 years will pass and you'll be exactly at the same spot you were in this gym 5 years ago. That's what I tell them. I go, you could walk out of here and I know in 5 years you'll be back, you'll be at the same place. Or I can help you put a plan together and you could start doing inch by inch, every day, one thing. But at least you're moving towards something. And the people I've met who are the happiest, like if I won $10 million in the lottery today, it wouldn't give me anything in my life. Because what the biggest joy that I get in my life, and what makes me most proud is what we accomplish, what we give, how we help. I tell people, how much can you take in? How much money can I take in? How much power do I need? At some point, you got to give it all back, right? And some of the people I've met who've had the hardest lives, who come from broken families, the ones who took awareness and consciousness have as well the highest level of awareness when they decide to do it, and are the most kind and are less judgmental than, you know, I've met the lawyer guy in the suit, and you know what I mean? Sometimes I'll go to dinner and I see these guys, you know, very straight and they're like, and they'll judge me based on my tattoos, based on, you know, People know me. I don't give a fuck. I'll go to the bar and I'll, go to the Greek restaurant. I'll be like, give me the mic. I'm going to sing. I'm going to dance. I'm enjoying life for the first time. There's a sense of freedom I've never held. And the most important thing, I'll share with you a quick story of a friend of mine. And he told me, he goes up to me, and he has money. He comes from money. But it's mostly his family's money. He hasn't done that much in his life. And he goes, I envy you, Nick. I go, why, man? I go, you have everything. He goes, yeah, but I'm still living trying to please my parents. And he goes, you live life under your own terms. You do whatever you want. I go, yep, I don't owe shit to nobody.
Yep.
I don't know crap to nobody. I could do, if I want to fucking set this building on fire, I can. If I want to take my stuff, I owe nothing to anybody because I, more or less, other than I've had help, but I built all this from scratch. And that's the toughest part, building something from zero to up. So for me, I look at where I came from and I say, I'm up in the game, man. Life has never been better. And every day I say, God, thank you. Thank you. And guess what? When you get to that point, there's less tension and you attract better people in your life, more opportunity. And guess what? When you have that energy, you're like a magnet. People want to be, what does he have that I don't have? And another thing, it's another friend of mine who told me, who comes from a lot of money. He goes, Nick, you know what's hard about your life that I haven't figured out? And he goes, he came from a lot of money and now they're basically going almost bankrupt. And I came from zero money. And he goes, I'm used to having money. So like now I feel like I'm losing everything I've had and we're losing it. And I'm not going to be that person that people knew as money, but you came from no money and you're making it. But you also have the skill of making it and doing it, where I'm thinking, what the fuck am I going to do? Because I've always lived under my parents' umbrella. So there's benefits to that.
When the parents feel they have to do everything for their kids, they create handicapped kids. That's just the reality, right? And at the end of the day, this is a big message that I give. The greatest gift that any adult can give any child, whether it's your child or not, is a bulletproof self-image, because you're going to teach that child that it can fish for itself. Nobody has to fish for them. That's the ultimate gift. Build that self-image. I want to talk about the fear and the reason, and I want you to run with this. The reason that I wrote this book and the reason that my message is based around fear is because I believe there's fear barriers that limit people, right, in life. And I believe the greatest fear of all time, bar none, is the fear of what other people think. And here's my life hack. You ready?
Let me hear it.
Anybody that fears what other people think, here's the reality and here's the life hack. And if you could wrap your brain around this, you become a free human being.
Wow.
We are humans and we are going to judge. That's who we are. We feel we want to be able to say we don't judge, but when you see that girl walking down the street with purple hair and different color, you start to judge. It's human nature. You ready? Here's the life hack that takes everybody off the hook. Your only job, Nick, only fucking job is to make them accurate.
Good point.
How do you make them accurate? You just show up as you. See, that's how you make how many people I walk into a meeting, right? I did a keynote. It's the honest to God truth. I did a keynote a few years ago in La Jolla, okay? And the guy that booked me, this is me, right? This is me.
That's how you walk in, yeah.
Monster motivator, right? So the guy that booked me last minute said for a corporate gig, right? Said,
wear a suit.
Yeah, no. He said, hey, I can't make it. I got to fly out to Texas, but my business partner will be there. Introduce yourself. First of all, we're running late. We're trying to find this fucking place. Now my assistant's with me. She's never been on location with me. So I got my stuff. I got my briefcase. I'm dragging along. I look just like this. And we make the turn and there's all glass windows and it's a conference room, right? With all suits and women all, suited up. And we make the turn and they're all looking at us. So we walk in and I look at I see the guy at the front. I walk over. Now they're all like, who is this? They're going to give me a broom, right, to sweep up. I go and I shake his hand. He's so taken back, Nick, that he can't even look me in the eye, right? So there's his own issues, right?
Yeah.
So I got my assistant setting up all the camera, and because we're recording, we're going Facebook Live, right? Fucking straight on. And she's like this. I go, Cindy, I go, listen to me. I pull her aside. She's nervous as fuck because she's feeling the energy, right? And they're like, right? Tables, right? Fucking, you're talking Armani. This is La Jolla, right?
Yeah.
Right over the fucking cliff of the ocean. So I see her all nervous. Now I got to fucking change this energy, right? With her. I said, I go, Cindy, come here a second. I go, listen. She goes, what are we even doing here? But I go, listen to me. I said, watch their faces 10 minutes into my story and then feel the energy as I start to wrap up. And I said, pay attention to the Q&A. And we had lunch after. And Nick, I walk in and they were like, who is this? I gave my 30-second, left back in the second grade diagnosis. And 10 minutes in, you start to see the relaxation. 15, 20. So it was close to a hour and 15 minute with Q&A. And we got to the Q&A part. Hands were going up, blah, 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 blah. And then at the end, people were lined up. They wanted a copy of my book and this. So we had lunch after. She goes, what the fuck happened? I said, I connected with them on a level they never thought possible because they judged me. And all I did, Nick, was I made them accurate. I had a CEO of a company come up and say, that's just like my son. We're going through this problem with him. The ADD, this, the that. I go, listen, he's not broke, my brother. He's not broke. I built and sold 3 companies at 3 different industries, and they told me that I was fucking broke, right? So when I had people, I said, Cindy, and she was just like, what? I go, all I did is make them accurate.
I love this story. I love it. And I think one of the hardest things, and I've had a coach and a therapist, because I actually, when I was like about 26, 27, I spiraled. I mean, borderline, I can say suicidal to a certain extent. I was really depressed. I hated my life. I didn't see. So I went to get help, and I went to see somebody, and I saw a few before I picked my coach, and I've been with her ever since. And she guided me, and she's, today I see her once every 3 months, whenever I feel like I'm kind of lost or there's a question or I want to figure out how to do it. And she told me something. She goes, Nick, because I'm very real. I'm very raw. And energy like ours intimidates people.
Yep.
Because most people, and I see them, are not themselves, are living what their parents want, what society thinks, what their job thinks they should look like or be like. And I can tell. And when they meet me, and I meet high-level people, they're always like, they're like this, and then they loosen up, and then they're like, can I talk to you on the side? And then they want to share their story. Yep. Then they want to tell you they're not happy, or how am I so comfortable with myself? What did I do? And it's funny because sometimes you look at these people and you think these guys have their shit together, but they're broken. But they keep it together with a suit and a tie and looking a certain way that they feel they have to, because we measure success based on how much money they have or what their career is or what their, I remember I met a lawyer and he goes up to me, we started talking, and then I said, why did you become a lawyer? And then he's a 40-year-old man, almost broke down in tears. I'm saying, well, it's because my parents wanted me to be a lawyer, and they're like, go into law. And I go, well, what did you want to become? He goes, actually an artist. I'm a really good painter. I go, so why don't you start painting? So now I do it on the side. Start by doing it on the side. Start pursuing, fulfilling that. Like my dream as well was to be an actor. I loved acting, right? So when I was taking acting classes for 5-6 years, and then I'm like, okay, how am I going to feed a family with an acting career? Zil to none. That's when I said, well, what's the next? How could I combine acting and my passion? Hey, let me try this YouTube thing. I get to be in front of the camera. I get to talk to people, and I get to act and as well teach. Hey, I get to fulfill that need that I have through what I'm doing. It's the same thing here. People are watching us, but we're sharing our story, but we're also entertainers. Imagine I was here, but like, well, I've been doing self-defense for 10 years. I really like it. You'd be like, fuck, this is boring. But you're an entertainer when you're on stage and when you're talking to people. I'm hearing you and watching you talk, and I saw you on Instagram, and I'm like, man, this guy is energetic. And what I love the most is the real and raw. And I tell people, you know when people are really real and raw is when they could do it on the fly, when they could do it live, when they could do it in the moment. Sometimes I get podcasts like I didn't ask you what are the questions I'm going to get because I don't really care. But sometimes when I do my podcast, what are the questions you're going to ask me? I'm like, I don't know, man. We're just going to see where it's going to go. We're going to have fun with it and whatever. But people need to feel secure of what you're going to be asked because they can control, because they want to have a certain amount of control and they don't want to go anywhere where they might be challenged or threatened, and not in a negative way, but you want to know about me and I want to know about you. So we're going to have to take it anywhere it goes.
They're afraid of being judged. It all maps back to being judged, right? And what I believe, those people that pull you aside, right? Pull me aside that have the white picket fence, right? And look like everything's got it going down. The reason that there's midlife crises is because they didn't have non-negotiables, right? They didn't have direction and truly know who they are. They let other people define them. Then they either implode it or even worse, and implode it and then rebuilt, like myself, right? Or they live the rest of their life with that fucking regret. That fucking...
You know, one of my quotes, my life quotes, is settle for nothing less than greatness. So very simple question I tell people. How's your health? It's okay. Is it great? Then change it. How's your relationship? It's not so bad. You know, guess what? If you're saying it's not so bad, if you're saying it's okay, if you're saying, you know, then if it's not great, then, you know, I try to look at all the areas of my life and ask myself, is it great? And if not, why am I settling? Why am I not changing it? I remember when you know, I know a lot of men come to me, men who are on the brink of divorce or not divorced or they're unhappy. And they ask me, Nick, how do I know when I pull the plug? How do I know? What made you? I was one of the first ones from all my buddies to get divorced. And I realized that I knew that there's no way I could spend the rest of my life with this woman. That the person I was and the person I became are not the same, and we need to grow together. And I realized we're growing apart, and as much as I was trying to make it work, it just wasn't happening. To one point, I had to make the best decision, not only for me, but for my son as well, right? Because it's not an ego thing. And I went to couples therapy. I tried, and I realized at the end, it's like, I know that I don't want to just be, well, it's not so bad, my relationship. I want a fucking good relationship. Just like I want good friends, I want a good wife, I want a good relationship with my son, because what's the point of having all that? What's the point of having all that if you don't have good relationships with yourself first and with the people around you? So I had to pull the plug, and I had to swallow a big pill. But you know what? I look back and I say, thank God I did it. And I didn't settle. Right? And
level of awareness.
Level of awareness. And it came at a big price. And I have a friend, and he's worth a couple of million, and he's not happy in his relationship. And he's like, man, you know, I feel like leaving her. I'm not sure. I mean, all the money I'm going to lose. I'm like, bro, like, it's money. You'll make it back. You want to sit on your death. I always say, sitting on your deathbed, right? And if I played a tape of your movie, what would you say?
Yeah.
And I told my girlfriend today, and I had the most amazing, kindest, she's a sweetheart. right? And I now I know what it is to be in a relationship, but I had to work on myself to attract that type of woman.
And keep.
And keep.
And build.
And build.
Right?
People don't realize relationships, just like friends, a good relationship is something you build with time. Because how do you build trust? I go by keeping your word. You call me, you say, Nick, we're going to have a podcast today. I show up 20 minutes late. Oh, trust just went down. Could I trust this guy if he's late and he didn't call me back? He didn't. And that's how you build. The more consistent you are with your word, the more trust is built between you and the people around you. The more trust you have, the more they want to work with you, do business with you, be friends with you.
How do you do that, Nick? You audit your shit, right?
You audit your shit.
You audit your shit. How can you build and scale a business if you don't audit it? How can you build and scale a life unless you actually audit it? And here's what I always say, that the two most powerful parents we all have and we're born with is Mother Nature and Father Time. Don't fuck with Mother Nature because you're never going to win, but you ready?
Never.
Father Time always reveals the truth.
You know what? I always say this. You could only hide who you are for so long.
It reveals the truth.
If I'm a bullshitter, eventually it will come out. I always tell people, be authentic with who you are as a person. I never claim to have black belts. I never claim to do a system I haven't trained. I'm always authentic because, look, if you like what I do, great. If you don't, you don't. But I'm not going to try to bullshit my way through life because it catches up to you.
And Nick, here's another life hack for people. Because we've all, if we're going to be honest and we're going to audit our shit, we've all been that person that we're not proud of. But,
absolutely.
But because life makes the rules, here's the deal. As long as you're auditing and you're willing to move past that and better yourself, here's how you embrace that person that you were. There were people that came into your life when you were a bullshitter that had to learn a fucking lesson in order for them to grow. So you were a catapult for that. So again, life makes the fucking rules. You don't, right? Are you willing to play that fucking game that under life's fucking rules? And life's number one rule is Father Time's going to reveal you sooner or later, right? And if you don't audit your own shit, you're never going to get to that next level.
I always say you could never win in the game of life. Life will always have a way of hitting you and punching and sucking you out.
Checking you, man.
If at any point, if you could only bullshit your way through life so much. And I look at bullshit like a garbage bag full of shit. Yep. And the more you put in it, it grows, it grows, it grows, it grows. Eventually, it explodes. And the bigger your bullshit, the bigger the kaboom. So at some point, you got to be authentic with who you are, where you are in your life, and be honest with you and yourself. People, and guess what? When you start doing that, people fucking respect you. People are like, oh shit.
The right people. Right. And that's out of our hands too. Right.
But the good thing is, if you're authentic, you will weed out all the shit, because anybody who's a liar or manipulator, and anybody who's in my circle right now, and I keep my circle very tight, knows that I'm real, I'm authentic, I work hard, I'm honest. If you're a bullshitter, you're not going to want to hang around with me, because I'm going to call out your bullshit, and my truth is going to be too intimidating for you.
You let the universe do the heavy lifting. It does all the work for you.
And I'm honest in the sense that when my life didn't go well, people knew. I never pretended everything is great. When I was going through divorce, when I was going through shit, I was like, man, shit's bad. I'm fucking drinking. I always go back to the point where when I got divorced, I was living in a little 1-bedroom, and I was literally like almost going broke. I barely was able to keep my house and keep my shit together. And I drank almost a bottle of vodka that night. I almost drank myself to death because I didn't want to feel anything. And I remember I woke up the next day in my head, I felt like I was going to die. And I'm sitting in front of the mirror and I'm looking at it. And I'm like dehydrated, exhausted. I was thinking, I can't give up now. I can't give up now. I got to be strong. I gotta, and that's when I called my coach and I was like, I got to see you. I can't let this moment in my life break me. And I say, thank God today I lived everything because I'm able to share it with people with experience. And here's the thing. You could debate all you want about what I did wrong or right and how I should have done it, or what the guru book says it, or this coach says this is the way. This is my story. This is what I've done. You can't debate it. You like it? This is what worked for me. It might not work for you. All I can do is share, but not what I read in a book, but what I've lived. And that's gold.
That is. And here's the other thing too about people feeling bad about being judged. Two things I want to share, and people need to understand this because this is real world, is the easiest job in the world and the least fulfillment is a Monday morning quarterback. Okay. Tell what the fucking person should have done on Sunday. Monday, they got all the fucking answers. And here's the other thing that people have to understand. And if you look back in life, it will confirm this. The loudest boos come from the cheapest seats.
That's so well said, and you're absolutely right. I always tell people so this is my theory, and so this is my theory. When I ask opinions, and I'll go back to when I was working at the hospital, right? When I was working at the hospital, I was planning, I was like, okay, I can't live with $30,000 a year. I can't raise a family. I need to make more money, and I hate what I do. So when I told a few people at the hospital, like, I'm thinking of opening my business. Eventually I want to get out of here. They all tell me, but why would you leave? You have a government job. You have security, job security, $30,000 a year. And they all were trying to convince me that, hey, you got it good. But what was their highest value? Security. Then when I spoke to other friends of mine who were entrepreneurs or starting their business, said, bro, what are you talking about? Open your own business. You have what it takes. You're good enough. What was their highest value? Freedom, or being an entrepreneur. So I always tell people, who are you asking advice, and what is their scale and their measure of their highest values? Then it all depends on who you're listening and what they're telling you from their perspective. And that's how I've measured it so far. And that's what I kind of noticed when you go around asking people advice. I tell people there's a handful of people that actually care what they think, right? Well, I'll be like, no, I'll ask my girlfriend because I respect her. She's very smart, emotionally smart, educationally smart. And she always talks with not what's best for her, but what's best for Nick in this situation.
And that is pure real world intelligence, right? That is that's emotional intelligence, right? At its highest level, because she has the self-image, right? Her self-image is strong enough to take herself out of the equation. It's not about her at this moment, right? It's about somebody else, whether it's you or somebody else. So but at the same time, right? Fucking love this, man. You got to give yourself, Nick Drossos, the credit to attract that intelligence and keep that intelligence and build on that intelligence.
I got to tell you a funny story. So my girlfriend's a doctor. Mm-hmm. So you have who's a doctor and you have a high school dropout. You're like, so we're at a restaurant. This happened December. We're at a restaurant and we're sitting, we're talking, we're eating. And then these two women get up and they're a little bit drunk and they start talking to us. And the girl goes up to me. She goes, I don't get this. She goes, can I ask you a question? I'm like, sure. She goes, she's a doctor and you're a trainer. How does that work? I was like, how does what work? Well, how do you communicate? I go, understand what you mean. Well, obviously you're not at the same level. I go, I don't know. I go, and she told me like 5 times she was a doctor at Harvard. Like she studied and she teaches at Harvard. I'm like, and I told her straight, I go, that's a pretty dumb question for somebody who studied in Harvard.
But no matter what, Nick, she won't get it because she hasn't lived the experiences. So you know what you say to her next time? Well, Nick, how do you guys communicate? We're both geniuses.
But my question to her, because when people say that to me, I was like, I go, how do you measure intelligence? Tell me the levels of intelligence that you know of. So it was a bigger story, but just to show you that, again, and even me, you know, it kind of like, it always, at that moment when we started dating, I'm like, but that's emotional intelligence
Yes.
is the highest.
That's it. That's
the rest. You go to school,
it.
you study, you learn something, but I mean, it's nothing more than academic.
And
but
here's
at the end,
here's proof. You ready? If we're gonna go into practical business world, let's really drive this fucking home why emotional intelligence is the epicenter. Because the only way you're gonna fucking scale a business is to surround yourself with people that know more than you. You get that in that lane. Nobody can scale a business by themselves, right? So in order to scale a business, you have to surround yourself with people that know more than you in those fucking lanes.
and that's hard for people with ego.
Because
That's very hard.
More, right? It's ego leads to, let's talk about this, Nick. The difference between confidence and cocky. Confidence is knowing, flowing, and glowing. Cocky is scared, insecure, and worried about looking weak. That's the bottom line, right? What is a bully? A bully is cocky, but a bully is so full of fear.
But you see, that's what I tell people. It's very powerful, right? To say, I don't know. I don't know. Like, can you show me? Can you teach me? Like, so when I sit with people that are, sometimes I go out with my girlfriend and we eat, and they're all doctors and stuff like that. And they're doing their doctor talk. I'm still asking questions. I still want to know. Well, what is that? Why do you guys do it that way? And I go, one way to measure intelligence is curiosity. I'm very curious. I learn, and I'm a sponge. And if I don't know, I know when to keep my mouth shut and just listen, and not to pretend that, bro, I know how to do this. I've seen tons of people tell me, I know, and they don't know shit. At the end, the proof is in the pudding.
Right. That's genius in life, Nick. That's genius in life.
And it's a powerful thing to say, I don't know. I've never been there. I can't really give you my advice. Whereas most people try to fake it. The expression fake it till you make it is a bad expression.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Be honest as you make it. Climb the ladder with authenticity, with hard work, with always being true to yourself and to others. Never try to shortcut yourself or shortcut others so you can make it faster. Because what's going to happen? You're going to climb all the way there. You're going to hit a brick wall. Guess what? Because of all the steps that you have to take are preparation. Just like I'm here with you today and I was on global TV. I did little podcasts over and over with 100 subscribers, 10 subscribers, people that, why? I look at it as training. I don't always look at it. Who is he? What numbers does he have? No. All right, I'm just going to train. I'm just going to go in front of the camera. I'm going to talk. I'm going to do my thing and get comfortable with it. Whereas most people, I tell people, you're going to have to start. I tell my son the same thing. He goes, Daddy, I'm not good at it. I go, no, nobody is born good at it. You build it as you start doing it. Nobody's born knowing it. You learn and you develop knowledge through doing it. So stop saying you don't know, you're not good enough. Just start doing it.
And Nick, this maps back to the biggest fear, right? The fear of what other people think. The reason that people are more terrified of public speaking than they are of death is because the fear of what other people think. And here's another life hack. It's not about you. Your message is not about you. So when you're on that podcast that has 13 fucking subscribers, right? The reason that you attracted that podcast is because there is somebody in that link that you're going to fucking impact. The universe. It's not about you, right?
At the end, that's what people don't realize.
Yes.
It's not at some point, if you're not giving back, you're not doing anything.
And that's
to me, it's that.
That's exactly how you get through death with loved ones, right? So many people are, and I've, last few years I've buried my mom and dad, right? And it's so proud of that whole journey. That's a whole nother story for another day. But the reason that people are so depressed and so somber when somebody passes is because it's so much about them and not the other person. They're not willing to step back and look at all the awesome things that individual, whether it's a baby, whether it's a toddler, whether it's a teenager or whether it's an elderly person, that person still had an amazing impact on this fucking planet if you're willing to look. So instead of you stepping up and doing a eulogy, which I did one for my ex-father-in-law who was a Vietnam vet, First Force Recon and state trooper in New Jersey for 30 years. We were best friends, and I did his eulogy. I just shared stories, man. I shared stories, and I had people come up to me after, his retired detectives, and go, man, I go, all I did was share it. I said, I just shared the truth, man. We were
at the end, I tell people, that's all we leave behind. When I pass away and I'm no longer here,
I want celebration.
I actually, you know, my girlfriend knows I want a big party at one of my favorite restaurants with music, and I want my ashes to be thrown over the Santorini waters.
Nick,
that's all.
You ready? I'm going to take everyone off the hook, because the other reason that they're feeling so somber, not only about themselves, because they feel fucking guilty because society tells them that they have to be somber for a certain period of time in order to be a correct person. You ready for this? I'm going to take everyone off the hook when it comes to the ultimate fucking what they consider tragedy when somebody passes. Nick, somebody in you that is a loved one to you that passes, and you could go back and speak to them, and you ask them this simple question: Mom, Dad, Aunt, Uncle, best friend, would you rather me be happy and celebrate your life, or sit there and be somber and feel bad about your death? What do you think that answer is going to be, Nick? What's that answer going to be? If you had to hear that from somebody that passed.
From me, I'd be like,
no. From one of your loved ones. If one of your loved ones passed tomorrow and you're doing a eulogy a week from now, right? But before that eulogy, you had an opportunity to speak to that person, that loved one that passed, and you say to them, Joey, Susie, how should I feel? Do you think they're going to say somber and depressed, or upbeat and think about my fucking, I want you to celebrate my memory?
I think let's say I take my parents because they're old and they're both sick, their mindset would be, I want you to cry. I want you to cry and to remember that you were not a good son to me. Sadly, but I know that's what I would get from them. Their mindset, yeah.
Here's what I believe, Nick,
yeah, go ahead.
is we confuse our physical being here on earth versus our source energy when we do pass and where we originally came from. And this has nothing to do with religion. I'm not a religious person, but I truly believe that the reason that we can leverage law of attraction so much is because we are more source energy than we are a physical body. So when that you came from pure source energy. You ready for this, Nick? You're going to fucking love this. To that theory, right? And I can send you some YouTube links, man. People that have crossed over and came back, there's not been one, and I've listened to 4 or 5, and I've met 2 or 3 that have no religious perspective on it, right?
Yeah.
Right. So it's real. It's all, I should say, authentic. All say the same thing, Nick. When I transferred over, it was complete and utter bliss, weightlessness, and zero judgment. Zero judgment. And I'm saying, people, and I could send you YouTube clips, a lady I follow on YouTube or Instagram, Anita Mohaji. She spoke, Nick, about her dying and coming back. That when I tell you, Nick, it gives you a sense of freedom and empowerment. and you look at death completely different than 99% of the people, Nick, it is absolutely unbelievable. So, and again, that's just my theory and my belief from those people that, again, lived it and came back. And when you hear the authenticity, we could tell, right? Whether or not it's fake or real, or whether there's an agenda behind it or not. I'm going to send you a few of these links, right? Dude, it is game changing, my brother.
I'll tell you my perspective on death is that, and I mean, I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of not living my life the way I'm supposed to. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because I'm going to be dead for eternity, but I'm going to be alive for very quick. So I'm like, better make it great, better make it count.
Right.
Right. And the other thing, when I look at death, it's sad, and I'm going to be so honest, because I've never been like, it's always easy to be transparent with somebody who can be as transparent with you. And I always look at my parents. When my parents are going to pass away, I'm going to be very sad. And the thing I'm going to be sad the most about is that I never had a relationship with them. They had a really hard life. I could complain about how hard my life was, but their life, when you hear their story about my father being raised with an alcoholic dad who beat the shit out of him every day and he died at 36 because he tried. My life story sounds like a walk in the park comparing. So I understand why he was so hard, why he was so cold, because he was always angry because there was something missing that he never got. So I'm always like, when they pass away, what I'm going to be sad about is that they never created a life. They missed out on so much opportunity. However, what I'm telling my sister, who I love to death and is like everything to me, and my son, is that when I die, guys, I've had a hard life, but I'm having a good damn ending. And if anything ever happens to me, I want a big party with music, Greek music and ouzo, and I want everybody to sing and dance, because I mean, at the end, I came out, like I came up on the game, and I'm proud of what I've done, what I've accomplished, and what I've given back. So to me, that is the greatest gift I could give to me and the people who love me, to remember me by, and not look at me like I was a victim or I had a hard life. I want you to remember the good, and because I give that, they will give the same back when I die. And again, at the end, who's going to remember me, them, and so on? At the end, we're just like dust in the wind. It's nothing. It's all going to go away. So just be the best that you can to yourself and to others, not because you're afraid of religion, because I grew up in a very religious, orthodox home, but it's because the right thing to do for our humankind. That's what we're supposed to do. Do it with love and care.
100%. And again, your parents could only work to their level of awareness, right? That's all they could do and everyone has the opportunity to work on themselves or stay where they are, but it's not your job, right? But the power of perspective for you is the way they brought you up created a bulletproof Nick Drossos. In other words, this is what you needed to get to where you're at and to where you're going.
You know what I told my parents? I said to my mom and my dad, I said, I will not, at the time I was young, and my son was actually just born. I had gone into a big fight with him. I said, whatever you guys do, I will do the opposite. I will not use your shitty life that you got, that you passed on to me, and use an excuse to give it to my son. I'm going to give him everything I never got. But then at the flip side, I end up compensating with like, no, what do you want? You want the new skateboard? You want the best bike? You want the Fortnite games? I give him everything. Now I'm like, okay, I went from one extreme to another, and now I'm finding the balance where he's 13. It's like he's 12. He's gonna be 13. I'm like, okay, you want something? Now you got to work for it. You know, you gotta earn stuff. Like I got to put an end to this, because I also don't want to raise a spoiled kid and create the kids or adults that we're talking about.
You don't want to create a handicapped kid, right? And you're auditing your shit.
Constantly. I'm always looking at my shit.
It's life is, I always say, Nick, life is the same recipe, just different ingredients.
Absolutely.
It's just different ingredients, right? So you're auditing your shit, you're catching it, and you're going, this is a non-negotiable for me. My son is not going to be handicapped.
It's funny, right? We've all met that person who, You know, you hear a story, you're like, oh man, fuck, that sucks. A year later, oh man, that sucks. They're repeating the same cycle over and over and over. And at some point, I'm
insanity.
Like, insanity is what? Repeating the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. I'm like,
insanity.
Obviously, like you're doing something to create this, right? Just write it down and figure it out and change the pattern. You got to break that pattern and that cycle some way or somehow with one little step. And then you scale that. I tell people want to do big things when I'm like, you can't even do the littlest thing. Before you start fixing other people's shit, make sure your own little bubble is in order. Because if your shit's not in order, how are you going to fix the world? And this is the back around. And I think this is where society, you see all these people going in the streets screaming, their life's a mess, but they're trying to fix the world. Fix your own life. And trust me, you'll be a lot more influential and a lot more powerful in changing the world when you have something, a solid ground in your own personal life.
We go back to nature, right? The head lion has to eat first in order for the pride to make it to the next day. You have to eat first, right? Then the rest of your crew can eat. So the better you make yourself, the better everyone else around you is. I want to be conscious of your time. Here's what I'd love to do if you're open to it, Nick, is I'd love to have you back on and we talk about your practical skills that you teach on a daily basis, right? And the power of our vehicle to get us through this lifetime, our body. Is that a deal?
Yeah.
You'd be back on?
I love that, man. Man, I'm telling you, this was one of my favorite podcasts, man. I'm saying it because there's so much passion. It's so raw, it's so authentic, and it's rare to meet people at this level, right? And a lot of people tell me, you're too intense. I'm like, what does that mean? And my coach says, yeah, when you hear you're too intense, it means you're too real, you're too raw. That's what it is. So people can't handle this, you walking up to them, being on their face, shaking their hand, being like, let's do this, man. What's the problem? Let's talk about it. And it's like, whoa, we're not used to this. Let's take it slow. It's like, you know what I mean? And again, so many people live in this fear, like you said, of judgment, which is huge. And until you live in that, guess what? I tell you, you're not living life under your own terms. You're living it under others' terms.
It's so true. And again, we talked in the beginning about you decide to pick your title. So instead of the old conditioning of ADD, broken, can't focus, can't function, not supposed to win in life, here's my title for myself. Dave Dale, the Monster Motivator. Pure, positive passion. That's what the roar is all about, baby, right? The roar, the Monster Motivator roar, right, is all about pure, positive passion. We're going to end on this, my man. You ready? It's called the Monster Motivator roar, right? Yeah. Life is asking you, Nick, right now, do you want to purr like a kitten or roar like a lion? That's it, my brother. That's the Monster Motivator roar. That's what it's about. Pure, positive passion, right? With not looking back. Just keep moving forward. And I believe this, Nick. This is the dynamic duo in life. You ready? When you can feel blessed and ready for more, you're going to win. Blessed and ready for more. So we're going to have you back on sooner than later, right? We're going to send you an invite and we're going to talk about our vehicle to get us through this lifetime and then your practical trainings so people can start to really see what you're doing and bringing that to the forefront. Before we jump off, share how we can find you.
You could check me out on my website, nickdrossos.com, and on Instagram, Nick Drossos Coaching.
And listen, go check out his YouTube, man. It is the real deal. And I proved to everyone that I'm not blowing smoke up their skirt because I asked him, what was your last video that you did? And it's all about this, baby. It's fearless. All about the fear. And fearless is bullshit.
I love it, man. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me on. It was a blast. And I hope one day we're going to get to train together or meet together. I think this was awesome, man. And man, keep it as raw and as real as you are. And I think this is, everybody needs to listen to this podcast. Everybody needs to be listening to this because, again, the core of the raw and the realness and the authenticity of who you are and what you're giving as a message is what people need and should be listening to.
And we're going to let the universe do all the heavy lifting. The right people will get it. The wrong ones keep doing their thing, man. Keep living in that insanity. So we're going to send you an invite to figure out your best schedule. We're going to jump back on, and then we're going to bring that practical shit to the real world so people can feel confident walking out their door.
Awesome, man.
Love it. Thank you, my brother. Keep
Great,
going.
man. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's see here. How do I end this with there we go.
That was amazing.
Right back because of this, man. Right?
It's
because of
you,
this.
You are honestly, you're probably one of the best interviewers I've had. And the best and the most, one second, let me just put on. One of the best and most real and raw interviews I've ever had. This was it.
Because we're looking in the mirror, Nick.
Yeah.
We're looking in
our
the
stories
mirror.
are so similar. And I think that it's rare to hear people like us share a real story.
Yeah.
And in my story, there's, my sister was kidnapped.
But but honestly,
so much more. I don't.
That's okay. But here's the thing, Nick, is as you start to build that self-image, right, that we all do, you're going to feel more and more confident to share it. But you ready for this? Here's a life hack real quick, Nick, for those fear barriers that you're running into. You ready? You were bad enough to make it through the other side. No. You ready? Now it's your obligation to share that. You get that? It's your obligation, Nick.
It's my obligation.
It's your obligation, Nick, as a fucking man that made it to the other side and is still making it on a daily basis. That's why life gave you those tests. Now, are you going to run from that? Or are you going to embrace that? Once you embrace that, the freedom that you get from that is there's no money in the world. There's no gold in the world. There's no island in the fucking world that could give you that, Nick. It's your obligation. When you wrap your brain around that, you become a whole nother dimension of a human being. It's your obligation.
Wow. That's very, very powerful. It's
real.
I've struggled. I was probably more open in this podcast than any other podcast, and there's more, and I'm getting more and more comfortable with sharing the story. And eventually I want to share the entire story. And like you said, at the end, I'm hoping that people will listen to it just like you and be like,
don't even worry about it. It will. The universe takes care of all that because we are source energy, right? Here's one thing, and I'm just throwing it out there, Nick, and it just came to me. You run with whatever. I always say, whatever I share, take what works, throw out the rest. But I believe this, Mick. For the next 30 days, when you wake up, first thing you do when you walk into the bathroom is just do this and see if look in the mirror and say, it's my obligation. Look yourself in the eye and then just walk away. For 30 days, Nick, it's my obligation.
My obligation.
Because that's why you went through the fucking journey you went through, right? It's your obligation. When you don't fulfill your obligations, you die with regret. And worst, you live with regret. And you keep, at the end of the day, fear is the biggest bully. What is my book says?
Fear is the biggest bully. Fear is the biggest bully.
Look at my subtitle. I want to teach you how to get your lunch money back from the ultimate bully in life. Right now, you're being bullied because of your stories. Don't allow that bully to take your lunch money 1 second more. Look in that mirror for 30 days and say, first thing you do when you put your fucking feet on the ground, look in the mirror, look in the eye and say, it's my obligation.
Wait, I want to take a picture of us. Man, this was this was eye-opening, man. It was, I actually, I actually learned so much as well, just listening to you.
Because it's meant to be, Nick.
Some
Right?
amazing.
I looked at your videos and I'm like, I got to get this guy on, man. Right?
Audit your shit. I love it. I love it.
And then I have to learn to step back because I'm such a forceful personality that I have to remember to step back and say, let me throw the invite out there and let it be what it be. You came back and you said, because I've had people that I connect with through the virtual world, and I'm like, I got to get them on. Push it out there. I don't hear back. That's okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
It's not the time. It's okay.
Yeah. Me too. I don't force anything to happen anymore.
But I have to learn that. That's my personality is like,
Now I learned, like, metaphysically, I let the universe, I put it out there, and maybe sometime it's timing, and you just have to wait, and eventually it's going to manifest
the
when it's
perfect
supposed
time.
to.
The perfect time, Nick. But it's your obligation, big man.
My man, thank you. So I want to do this again. Whenever you want, send me the invite.
Today, we're going to send the invite. You look at your schedule, just like you did. Let's book it, and we're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about your real-world practical applications to live life in a courageous state.
I'm going to put this on my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I'm going to share it everywhere and just blast it out, because I think it was one of my best interviews I've done.
It was your best, Nick, because you stepped up.
I was more open.
Why? Because it's your obligation.
And it's you, meaning that I know that I could connect. I could feel free to, like, express that part of the story, because it's also part of your show. So it all fit together.
Right. And now take that a step further as a catapult. When you're on with the stuffed shirt, right? Now what you do is you I've had people say to me, to my face, God, man, you're so much smarter than I thought. I said, thanks, man.
I've had people say that too to me.
I say, I love it. I love it. I love shocking people. I have a, I'm in the dog world, and I have my next big thing is the pit crew, but I walk down the street in my own neighborhood with my pit bull, and people go on the other side, right? Because they judge. I'm just here to make them accurate.
I like that. Just make them accurate.
Right?
All right, my man.
Brother.
Look, I'm going to see you. We're going to do this. You're going to send me the date. I'll write it down. When you have all the information, send it to me, and we'll take it from there. And
when you find yourself on the West Coast in SoCal, we got to connect, my brother.
100%.
All right. Let's do it.
All right, my man. Be good.
Thank you, dude.